Greetings and welcome everyone to Pillars of Eternity, a new role-playing game by Obsidian Entertainment. You may well have heard a bit about this game. It received quite a lot of attention. It was funded through Kickstarter some time ago and recently released to quite positive reviews from a number of sources. And although playing an RPG is not something I've really done a lot of on my channel, it has been something that I've wanted to do for quite some time. And given the release of Pillars of Eternity, I think I could start with far worse games than this one as an entry into the RPG genre on my channel. Now, to give a bit of a backstory, or a very little bit of backstory, Pillars of Eternity is more or less been designed from the ground up to emulate the old Infinity Engine role-playing games, such as Baldur's Gate, Planescape Torment, which I played quite a lot of, actually, and is easily one of my favourite RPGs. As a result, there will be some things that might be familiar to you if you played those games, or if you're relatively new into the sort of RPG genre, some things might take a little bit of getting used to. It is based not on Dungeons and Dragons, it is based on new IP with regards to the game and the mechanics and the world and lore, but I think the game is probably going to be better speaking for itself. So we're going to jump into the game now. Just a heads up though, as a disclaimer, this is going to probably be an episode where I focus on character creation, because as with many games, character creation is probably going to take quite some time. Now, when we first start off, we've got 3 regular difficulty modes: easy, normal, hard. Let's have a look at what easy is. Strongly recommended for those who are new or recently returning to real-time party-based RPGs. I am definitely not in that category. It is not recommended for newcomers to real-time party RPGs. Probably going to be going normal, honestly. Hard difficulty is suited for Infinity Engine veterans who are looking for a challenge. Survival requires micromanagement and optimization of stats through items, spells, and abilities. This, while I probably fall into this category in terms of my familiarity with Infinity Engine, I don't like playing these sorts of games with heavy micromanagement, specifically min-maxing. I'm not as into that, so I'll probably shy away from hard. But for completeness sake, the Path of the Damned difficulty, enemies receive a bonus to most stats and encounters have more enemies. Warning, this option can't be changed in-game. It is only intended for players who want the most punishing encounters, i.e. masochists. You know, it says it, who want to be punished. You know who you are. Now, from that description alone, I'm going to assume that you can switch the difficulty levels between normal, easy, and hard throughout gameplay. So if for example, I find that normal isn't really much of a challenge at all, I might upgrade to hard. And if I find that, this was a terrible mistake, I might downgrade back to normal. I'm not sure. But Path of the Damned, not for me. Not this run anyway. Now, you've got 2 further modifiers. Trial of Iron. In Trial of Iron mode, only one save file is kept for the entire playthrough. If the player is killed, the file is deleted and you must start again. This option can't be changed in-game. Now, I am almost certainly going to be playing as though I've got this mode turned on. It's just how I like to play role-playing games. I like there to be consequence. However, within the realms of Let's Playing, I'm not going to turn that on because there are a plethora of things that could go wrong. And having only one save file can lead to a lot of heartache when suddenly a 40 or 30 hour run suddenly comes to an abrupt end because of some sort of technical difficulty. Expert mode disables a number of helper features in the game. Players who want to rely on their own faculties and intuition while playing the game should play expert mode. This option is selected when you start a new game. It cannot be enabled in-game, and if disabled, cannot be re-enabled in-game. Now, I'm going to leave this off because I'm not familiar with this engine. I'm familiar with Infinity Engine, but I'm going to assume, and from what little I've heard, the new engine made by Obsidian Entertainment is different. So I'm going to leave that off for at least a while. I believe there are a number of options that you can individually disable to more or less get the same experience, and if I feel that it would be improved by having those options turned off, then I'll turn them off throughout the game. But we're going to be just going on normal difficulty. Ah, good. Music has returned. I was missing you, music. Now, a further disclaimer for this. Oh, I like that face in the wall there. I am probably going to play this the same way I usually play RPGs. That is, I'm not going to change my playstyle for the sake of a Let's Play. I'm going to be trying to be... Well, I'm going to be playing this the way I usually like to play RPGs. And that is more of a thoughtful, methodical playthrough. I wouldn't want to say that I'm a completionist, but I do like to do all of the quests that I can find. I don't go out of my way to find that single hairpin that is hidden underneath the rug in the one bed chamber in a castle that unlocks the trapdoor in the ceiling that you couldn't even see until you picked up the hairpin kind of completionist. But definitely I like to talk to as many NPCs as I can find. I like to explore the world quite actively, going out of my way to explore certain areas. And also, whilst the player that is Avak, I'm going to be playing this, and I'm not going to be doing voice acting much. I mean, I can't say I won't do it at all. I'm not going to be narrating as though I am the character, but the choices I make are going to be heavily influenced by the choices I believe my character would make within the setting. That is, my character is entirely unaware of the fact that it is, in fact, just a 2D construct living its life to the whims of my three-dimensional manipulation. You know, I'm well beyond the fourth wall here, and I'm going to make no attempt to hide that. But my character is under the full belief that it has free will, and it has agency, and it is making decisions based on its personality, and I am going to be making those decisions based on what I think my character would do. So there is going to be a strong role-playing element to this Let's Play, but it's not going to be full-on live-action roleplay, kind of roleplay, if you get where I'm coming from with that. But with that all said and done, I guess the first choice is male or female. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's probably no difference between them. The place of men in society varies from culture to culture. Cultures like Adir or the Direwood place them at the forefront of military, politics, and heavy labour. Among the tribes of the Nastic, men perform many of the homesteading and organisational duties. In Ir Glanfath and... that name. Ixamital? Men and women have more fluid social roles. In all societies, there are exceptions to the rule, and men can be found in a wide variety of stations and professions. Let's just double check that there isn't any sort of like stat difference, not that it would really affect my choice. A woman's role in Eora is largely dependent on where she is from. In the Adir Empire, Valian Republics and the Direwood, women occupy many domestic, educational, and organizational roles. They are the primary hunters, soldiers, and leaders of the tribes of the Nasitak in Glanfath and Ixamital. Women and men have more fluid social roles. In societies, there are exceptions, blah, blah, blah. So basically, pick whatever you want. I'm going to pick a male because, again, I'm going to be trying to make choices based on what I think my character would choose, and I'm going to have a far increased capacity to make that call playing a male character. So we're going to move forward with that. Now, there are 6 races, and if I haven't mentioned this already, this is more or less blind. I've watched a game mechanics video that just goes over some of the basic mechanics but spoils nothing of the lore and the story, and I've read very little of the lore specifically so I could enjoy the game, because that's a very big part of what I like to do. Like I said, I like to explore, and part of that is exploring the lore of the game. So I'm more or less going into this blind, except for some knowledge of how the combat and the mechanics of the game work. Humans, commonly called folk, that I like, are the most common race in the Direwood. The Adir Empire, Old Valia, I imagine it's Valia, and the Valian Republics. Though not as large as the towering Amawa, humans are known for their strength and willpower. Resolve +1, might +1. Now I'm going to hover over these things here and there so I can learn a little bit more about them, and perhaps just so that I can allow those of you who do not have the game yourself to understand what might be an important stat or skill. Resolve reflects a character's internal drive, determination, fearlessness, and the emotional intensity that they can project to others. It can be useful for mental intimidation, leadership, and convincing performances. In combat, it helps characters maintain concentration and contributes to the will and deflection defenses. Might represents a character's physical and spiritual strength, brute force, as well as their ability to channel powerful magic. Now, that is a really interesting thing. You might be given to thinking that might is synonymous with strength, and it's not really. It's not a stat of your physical strength. It affects magic as well, which is really, really quite important, and I'll touch a little bit on that in a moment. During interactions, it can be useful for intimidating displays and acts of brute force. In combat, it contributes to both damage and healing, as well as the fortitude defense. Amawa. The mighty Amawa are the largest of the Kith races and are commonly found in or near oceans. Though not truly aquatic, they have an affinity for water, and many of their civilizations, such as Ruatai, are based on naval dominance. They are known for their unparalleled strength. They get Might +2. Dwarves. By virtue of land covered and number of colonies settled, dwarves are the most well-travelled race in the world. They are commonly found in the Direwood and the Vailian republics and almost any colonized land. Dwarves are known for their great strength and tenacity. Now, they have a negative to dexterity and a plus to constitution. You may start noticing that it looks like, from what I've seen, all races end up having a positive of 2 points, but some of them have +2, -1, +1. Now, dexterity is the abstraction of a character's hand-eye coordination, balance, and overall grace. In interactions, it can be used for sleight of hand and fast reactions. In combat, it affects the character's action speed with all attacks, spells, and abilities, and contributes to reflex defense. Constitution is a combination of the character's overall health and stamina. Although it is not used much in interactions, it is sometimes checked to withstand pain or endure a physically taxing ordeal. In combat, it affects maximum health and endurance and contributes to the fortitude defense. Now, you'll notice from reading a couple of these that there's no, this is for a rogue, this is for a fighter, this is for a mage kind of stat. All of the stats seem to interact, and there's no clear, this is a stat that is utterly useless for my class or my kind of build. I can dump this one in order to rise the others. That doesn't seem to be the case with this game, and I really strongly approve of that. Elves are the dominant race of Ir Glanfath and the white that wends, and are extremely common in the Direwood and Aedir. Elves are known for their speed and intelligence, as well as a commonly isolationist nature. Now, they get +1 perception. Perception represents a character's sense as well as their instinctual ability to pick up on details. In interactions, it can be used to catch someone in a lie and make an observant comment about their appearance, or to notice something happening in the background. In combat, it contributes to the deflection and reflex defenses and grants a bonus to interruption. Now, interruption is actually quite important in this. Orlan. Wow, you look like gremlins. Orlans are the smallest of the Kith races, though many cultures don't consider them to be civilized at all. I guess Kith is the word, well, to be very blunt about it and probably oversimplifying to the point of falsehood. Perhaps Kith is the word they use for intelligent races, sort of like sapient, self-aware races, more or less what humans consider the defining characteristic of humanity and what sets them apart from all the other animals of our world. Also notable for their large ears, two-toned skin, and hirsute bodies. Hirsute? Wow, I've only seen that word used like 3 or 4 times ever. That is a good sign. This is a well-read author wrote this. Orlans are commonly found in Ir Glanfath. The Ixmital Plains, I will always trip over that word. The IX is throwing me off. And part of the Direwood. They are known for their mental intensity. We've got Resolve +1. Have we checked out Resolve? Yes, we have. Might and Perception. Okay. And Godlike. What a name. Now, they don't all look like this. Each race has sub-races, and that changes this race probably more than any of the others. The Godlike are children of the Kith, civilized races, who have been blessed with physical aspects associated with the gods, though some do not consider it a blessing. These aspects may take many forms and often come with mystical powers. Aberrant head shapes are typical, and godlike are unable to wear protective headgear, as it's near impossible to find anything that fits. Because of their unusual nature and their inability to reproduce, godlike are often viewed with fear and wonder. Now, they've got plus on intellect. Intellect represents a character's logic and reasoning capabilities. In interactions, it can be useful for deduction, sudden realizations, and problem solving. In combat, it contributes to the will defense and influences durations and area of effect of all abilities and talents. Now, that is really important to note. Now, again, like I said, there's no stats that are only useful for a warrior, only useful for a rogue, only useful for a wizard, or whatever you like. Intelligence here affects AoE and durations of effects and ability. So if your warrior has some sort of awesome ability, chances are intelligence will increase the duration of its effect or the area that it can be applied to. So again, there are no dump stats that I'm aware of. Now, as I mentioned, there are different types, but we're going to primarily pick a race, and then I'll only really look through that. But I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the various races. I didn't really stay for long on these ones. If you want to read this information, you can pause it. I will be reading whichever one I decide on. I haven't made my mind up yet, so I'll just move through these. But the mountain dwarves and the boreal dwarves, oh, I like their faces. That's quite cool. Elves, we've got the wood elves and the pale elves, look more like orcs. And Orlands. Oh wow, wild Orlands. Yes, you really do look quite wild, actually. And finally the godlike. Like I said, the godlike have a lot. So you've got the death godlikes, the fire godlikes, the moon godlikes, and the nature godlikes. I really like the look of all of these guys. And each sub-race has a different contribution to the character. It's not just fluff text. It is they actually do have differences. But as much as I like the godlikes, and their faces are just kind of crazy. In fact, I'll actually quickly read this one, though I'm fairly certain I'm not going to pick it. Death godlike are the most distrusted of their kind. Strange growths cover their eyes, or in some cases, entire faces, giving them a sinister appearance. The growths are transparent for the godlike, but opaque from the outside, hiding their features. Death godlike are commonly killed at birth, because many cultures consider them to be harbingers of doom. I'm really tempted to play a death godlike, but my vanity says no. I'll be honest with you. My vanity is just saying, no, Avak, don't do this. You'll look horrible. So did the Phantom, though, and he was awesome. Now, I'm probably going to go with human. I know, it's the boring choice. But, again, I find that I'll probably be able to relate a little bit more. I'm kind of tempted for a dwarf. But I'm going to go with human for this character. I may try out the other characters in a different life. Perhaps if I die very quickly, I'll start the game again and I'll choose something else. But we've got the Meadowfolk, the most common humans in the Direwood. The Meadowfolk, or Thirtan, have lived in that area for almost 2,000 years. Meadowfolk traditionally live at the edges of elven forests, working the open plains. Hence their name. Most humans in the Direwood are Thirtan. Fighting Spirit. Once per encounter, 5 seconds after being reduced below 50% endurance, folk temporarily gain bonuses to accuracy and damage. Now, endurance is a really interesting stat. I'll quickly read this. I won't read every single stat. That is, I won't hover over it and read it out if I already know more or less what it is. But endurance represents a character's short-term survivability. Damage that is not absorbed by a character's damage reduction goes straight to their endurance and health. Potions and healing magics, such as from the paladins, priests, or druids, can restore endurance in combat. When a character's endurance reaches 0, he or she will be knocked out. A knocked out character can be brought back in combat through the use of a revive ability. Otherwise, the characters will gain all of their endurance at the end of combat, assuming they're on the winning side. Now, endurance and health, very, very closely tied together. Endurance is not stamina, as you might be inclined to think. Endurance is... Health is your ability from the last time you've rested to keep going. Endurance is how much crazy sudden action you can endure before you are so worn down you pass out. That's more or less how I understand it. When you get attacked, when you take damage in a fight, the damage is applied both to your health and your endurance. Your endurance is about a quarter, or maybe even less, of your health, your overall health. So healing magics and any kind of potion and that sort of thing is applied to your endurance. It'll bring your endurance up, but it won't affect your health. Your health will keep getting lower. So it kind of puts this natural barrier on the idea that you can just keep going and keep fighting and keep going and keep fighting, never resting, never stopping to fully recover. Endurance is just how much fighting spirit and how much energy you can bring to bear in one encounter. And once you're out of the encounter, it's fully recharged, no matter how low it got. But in that encounter, that's the one that you're probably going to be worrying about the most, because if that drops to 0, you get knocked out. If your health drops to 0, you're dead. It's just flat out as far as that goes. And there's, from what I understand, no way of restoring your health outside of the traditional go to sleep, rest, camp, go to an inn, whatever you need to do. But that's how you restore your health. Endurance can be restored much faster, and I really like that. I dislike the idea of healing magics. Someone just lopped off my arm. Oh, never mind. Here, lay on hands. Thank you. My arm is back. No. You've got a huge gaping wound. That's still there. Granted, it's still a little bit weird that you can have one good sleep and the gaping wound is gone, but still, I like the idea that healing magic is more refreshing you rather than putting you back together kind of thing. That is something I really, really like. But as a result, you will need to camp. Eventually, you're just going to hit that wall where your health is so low that going into the next fight is probably going to kill you, regardless how high your endurance is, and you're just going to have to deal with that. But that was the Meadowfolk. The Ocean Folk, or the Kalbandra, originated near the equator on the other side of the globe and are currently the most widespread human group in that region, but they have also migrated to the far reaches of the world. Ocean folk are the dominant culture in the Vilean republics and are also common in the Direwood. Fighting spirit, once per encounter, 5 seconds, is exactly the same as the other one. So Savannah folk the same? Okay, all humans get the same thing. I don't believe that's true of the others. I think all of the other races get something different with their sub-races. Savannah folk, Natlan, come originally from just south of the equator and, with the exception of some groups that migrated north, have remained in the same location for over 10,000 years. The name Natlan literally means original. While quite common in the Reed Karas? I'm not sure how that should be pronounced. Savannah folk are not usually seen in the Direwood and the Valian republics. I'm probably going to go for the Meadowfolk, honestly. I'm sure that we've got quite a lot of choices in terms of appearance, so I could make them look more or less any kind of skin tone, any kind of hair that I would like. But I like the idea that these guys are from the Direwood. I believe that we're going to be starting there. I'm not sure, though. I could be completely wrong. We could be somewhere else, and I should be going for the Savannah folk. But I like the idea that these guys come from the Direwood. And also, they've got some connection with elves. From what I understand, again, I haven't really seen any kind of playthrough of this game. There's a lot of interactions. In fact, lots of the stats mention during interactions. That's when you're having discussions or interacting with some part of the scenery, perhaps a trap's going off or whatever. Lots of stats will give you different kinds of choices in how you respond to that interaction, perhaps giving you better options through the engagement. And I'm going to assume that as these guys often live on the edge of the Elven Forest, they would have at least some, working relationship with the elves. I don't know. Maybe they'd be enemies, and maybe this is going to backfire horribly. But that's the whole point of a blind Let's Play. Now, classes. There are lots of things to take in here, and unfortunately I'm only going to skim over them. I'm not going to go through each one. At each level you can select abilities, and some have more than others, but I'm going to just quickly go over what I understand to be the class, and I'll probably scroll through the text a little bit, but by and large I'm just going to decide on which one I want, and then we're going to go with that one. So we've got the Barbarians. Probably going to be more of a... Well, we can already see the dual wielding. So this is definitely going to be in this sort of fighter area. They've got very high endurance, very high health as well. Average accuracy, low deflections. not too bad. It's got athletics and survival, though, and I'll quickly have a look at these. These are skills. I believe there are 4 skills, and they will come into play quite a lot, I imagine. Athletics. Adventuring is tiring work. Traveling, fighting, and scrambling up fallen statues can take its toll. The athletics skill counters the effect of accrued fatigue, allowing characters to go further and fight longer before they suffer penalties. In conversations and scripted interactions, athletics is used for physical feats like climbing, swimming, and jumping. Survival allows characters to make better use of the food and potion items they find. The higher the character's survival skill, the longer the duration of such items. Survival can also be used in conversations and scripted interactions that involve wilderness challenges or specialization information. So, men and women of the wilds, then. So I imagine they would have a fairly rough lifestyle and are more likely going to be sort of brawlers. We've got the Cypher. These are quite an interesting one. Very low endurance, low health, average accuracy, high deflection. They've got stealth, lore, and mechanics. Okay, there's at least 5 skills then. Traps and locks can be a problem for even the toughest adventurers, draining their resources and maiming or killing those who are unfortunate enough to trigger an unseen floor plate. The mechanics skill makes it easier to open locks and find and disable traps. Additionally, any character can use the mechanics skill to place traps of their own. The higher the mechanics skill, the more accurate the trap. In conversations and scripted interactions, mechanics can be used to activate or disable a variety of machines. Lore represents a character's accumulated miscellaneous knowledge and trivia, often of occult and esoteric topics. I love the word esoteric. Outside of conversations and scripted interactions, lore is used to activate scrolls. Higher lore values allow the character to use higher level scrolls. And stealth. Stealth allows characters of any class to attempt to avoid being seen or heard. It is used automatically when the character is in scouting mode. The higher the character's skill, the closer they can get to enemies before being detected. Now, the Cypher, from what I understand, they use a sort of telepathy kind of ability. In fact, I think one of the skills they can get is like a charm ability, Whispers of Trees in here. But I'll actually read it out because it's a bit of an interesting class, so it's hard for me to just sum it up. Recent discovery in Eastern Reach, Cyphers were once called Brishalgwyn, Mind Hunters, by their Glanfathans. Cyphers have the ability to directly contact and manipulate another person's soul and psyche, using an ally or enemy's essence as the focus for their magic. Though most ciphers are still found in the Eastern Reach, practitioners of the techniques have spread throughout the known world. They are gaining acceptance over time, but are generally distrusted, especially by the uneducated. Given, that seems like a fair reason to distrust them. Yeah, you can get inside my mind. No, thank you. I don't like you being near me. Right, fighters. Now, from what I understand, fighters are actually more of a tank than anything else. Not direct DPS, though they certainly are fairly good at that. They've got athletics, lore, and survival. They've got high endurance, high health, very high accuracy, and very high deflection. Now, I believe they also have an ability which allows them to constant recovery. Yeah, fighters continually regenerate endurance at a modest rate during combat. So they have got a huge amount of staying power. Though I could easily imagine that leading you to the assumption that, oh yeah, they're fine, they're doing well. But it's just that they're restoring the damage that they've been taking. So their health could be ticking down sneakily without you realizing, which could put you in a bit of a bind. But fighters, from what I understand, are more your tank class than a direct DPS sort of class, but probably do equally well in both. Paladins, as you might expect, holy warriors. They have got endurance high, health high, accuracy average, deflection very high. Now, I believe they require to choose a deity. And unlike in many role-playing games, there's no particular alignment function. There isn't good, there isn't evil. These are silly words. I personally believe they're silly words in the real world as well. There's no one who's just flat out evil. That's the sort of stuff that you read in fiction. People have motivations, they have desires, and some desires can be wicked, certainly. But I don't believe that anyone is simply born, I'm just going to ruin the world just because I'm bored today. The favored disposition of the various gods. kind of give you a guide to how that paladin should act to remain in the favor of their god. And the closer they are to that, the more they act in the desired sort of arena of that god, the better certain abilities will be. So, for example, this god's favored dispositions, cruel and aggressive. Disfavored dispositions, benevolent and diplomatic. This one, passionate, clever, but disfavors cruel and stoic. And gold-packed knights, favored disposition, stoic, rational. Disfavored disposition, passionate, aggressive. Sorry, these are orders, not deities. I do apologize for that. The priests have deities, and they work in much the same way. The paladins have holy orders, and they have that more or less the same sort of thing. They have favored dispositions. But these would affect the paladin in different ways. Faith and conviction, paladins have an inherent bonus to all of their defenses. Over the course of the game, the value of this bonus may shift based on the reputation the paladin gains relative to the behaviors that are preferred by his or her order. Next, we have rangers. As you might imagine, probably good hunters, bowmen. Animal companion. All rangers share a strong bond with an animal companion. The companion fights at the ranger's command and is extremely valuable for its ability to run interference. Animal companions don't do much damage, but they have high damage reduction. The link between the ranger and the companion is powerful. If one goes down in battle, the other suffers as well. That's interesting. Low endurance, high health though, very high accuracy and high deflection. And as we can see, they start with a bow, which kind of gives you an idea of what they would probably lean towards. We've also got the wizard. The masters of academic magic. Wizards are students of arcane tradition that stretch back beyond the boundaries of recorded history. Arcane assault, mid-range attack that hits a small area. Spells, wizards. Now this I think I probably need to read because it works slightly different to the way wizards work in D&D. Wizards have access to a variety of offensive and personal defensive spells. Unlike priests and druids, wizards learn individual spells that they can store and cast directly from their grimoire. Grimoires can only hold 4 spells of each spell level, which motivates wizards to keep multiple grimoires for different needs. Every 2 levels, wizards gain access to an additional set of spells. However, they can automatically learn 1 spell of any level they can access each time they advance. Wizards also have the option of learning spells from grimoires they find or buy. Initially, their spells can be cast a limited number of times per rest. Now that's important. It's not per encounter, it's per rest. As wizards gain power, their weaker spells eventually shift to per encounter use. So eventually, your lowest level spells can be used as many times, a certain amount of times per battle instead of a certain amount of times per between sleeping. Endurance very low, health very low, accuracy very low, deflection very low, very squishy. But the idea of the grimoire really interested me. Instead of just having a repertoire of spells, they can have spells in a grimoire, and now they can cast spells from the grimoire. Now, the reason why I draw attention to that is because they can switch their grimoire in combat. Much like switching weapon, it will take time, and time is a dangerous thing to just squander, so you don't necessarily want to do it willy-nilly. But, for example, an example that I've heard was that if you came up against an enemy, perhaps one that was particularly vulnerable to a certain type of magic, maybe you keep your magic organized by type in various grimoires. So you're like, oh, right, I can tell that elemental of ice is weak to fire, right? My fire grimoire comes out, here's all of my flamey magic. And, different situations. Perhaps you've got one that is generally good for all situations, but then you've got specialist ones that you can switch to when you need to. Now, again, it takes time to switch, and during that time you can't cast any spells, so, you do have to pay a price for that flexibility, but I really like that idea. Rogues are vicious killers, feared for the brutality of their attacks. They can be found as often in dark back alleys as the heart of battlefield skirmishes. Though unpredictable and undisciplined, rogues are commonly used as shock troops or as part of a surprise assault. Their withering attacks, breaking enemy ranks and morale. Rogues tend to congregate in larger numbers in cities where they can be steadily employed as mercenaries or hired muscle. I really like rogues, but vicious killers, feared for their brutality. I'm more of a lover than a fighter rogue myself, or the silver tongue type of rogue. Starting ability, Sneak Attacks, applies bonus damage to the rogue's ranged and melee weapon attacks when the target has any of the following afflictions: blinded, flanked, hobbled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, struck, stunned, or weakened. So pretty much, if your enemy is debuffed in more or less any way, I mean, I don't know how many different debuff states there are, but the rogue seems to be able to capitalize on quite a lot of them. It also applies to any target the rogue strikes with a weapon within the first 2 seconds of combat. So, if your rogue initializes combat, now this is an important one, because if you can start the fight and get into the attack first, or at least one of the first, then you're going to effectively, I guess this is simulating the element of surprise, and the rogue is going to do a decent amount of damage. Stealth mechanics: endurance very low, health very low, accuracy very high, deflection low. Now, I guess I should actually look over these. Let's have a look at accuracy. Accuracy is a part of almost every attack. It influences how likely the attack is to affect the target. Accuracy is defined primarily by a character's class and the level, but it's also influenced by talents and other active effects, such as spells or items. When an attack is made, the accuracy is compared to the appropriate defense on the target to determine how the attack roll will be modified. If accuracy is above the target defense, it will be more likely to result in a hit or crit, less likely to result in a graze or miss. Any ability or talent that does not use a weapon as part of the attack gains a small accuracy bonus based on the level of the character. Deflection is the defense used to resist direct melee and ranged attacks against the character that are not area of effect. It is defined by the character's class, level, perception, and resolve, but may also be influenced by shields, certain weapons, talents, and other effects. Basically, deflection is not absorption. Deflection is flat out not being hit, or deflecting the blow completely. Absorption is being hit, but being able to take a bit of that damage, and your armor being able to absorb some of it, so not all of it is going down to you. But deflection is more or less the kind of Mr. Miyagi advice of, yeah, don't get hit. That's my advice. Don't actually be hit. Pretty sound advice, honestly. Especially with the faction that... just don't get into a fight, actually. Just don't. Stay at the back. Just shoot things, yeah. So they'd probably be fairly good with the bow, actually. Though they've got 2 daggers there. There isn't really an equipment malice that I'm aware of. You can more or less equip anything. You can have a priest, which has got lots of gear. There is certainly probably going to be gear that is better for some classes than others, or capitalize on the playstyle that class affords. But again, you're not really that heavily restricted from what I understand. Priests, these are your holy warriors. So, Holy Radiance generates a modest amount of endurance for allies around the priest. Any enemy vessel caught in the area take burn damage and may be frightened. Over the course of the game, now frightened doesn't cause things to run away, by the way. It just causes their combat effectiveness to drop sharply. So, a bit different from I'm absolutely terrified, I'm just going to run away, even though realistically... This is one thing I dislike about games which have terrified that just makes them flee, is that sometimes backing away from something is more frightening. Turning your back to something can be terrifying, whereas facing it is a known quality. Even if you're terribly afraid, sometimes you'll just attack it out of fear. You won't run away from it, and that's the way that, in real life. So the idea that whenever something's afraid, it just flees, I've never really liked that in games. I like the idea that when something's frightened, it just gets worse at combat because it's not really making rational decisions about how to fight anymore. Over the course of the game, the power of this ability may shift based on the reputations the priest gains relative to the behaviors that are preferred by his or her deity. So very similar to the paladins, the priests have a heal ability that will get better or worse depending on how they stray from the paladin. Spells. Priests have access to a variety of support from some offense-orientated spells. Every 2 levels, priests automatically gain access to an additional set of spells. Initially, their spells can be cast a limited number of times per rest. As priests gain power, their weaker spells eventually shift to per encounter use. They get athletics and law, very low or low on more or less everything. Again, quite squishy, despite the fact that I kind of feel that they are of the cleric sort of persuasion of priests, so warrior, divine warriors. So here are the gods, and again, favored disposition, stoic, rational, disfavored disposition, passionate, cruel, that sort of thing. Monks, your martial artists of this world. Stealth, athletics, survival, high endurance, very high health, very high accuracy, very high deflections. Now, monks use Transcendent Suffering. When monks have no weapon equipped, their unarmed attacks are exceptionally powerful and continue to increase in damage as they gain levels. Wounds. As monks are damaged, their pain generates wounds. Wounds can be used to power many of the monk's special abilities. So, effectively, you're empowering them by hurting them. They're quite calm outside of combat, but as you start to wage war against them, as you start to inflict pain, they can channel that pain. Instead of becoming fearful, instead of becoming pain averse, they will use their pain to fuel their martial prowess. I quite like the idea of monks actually in this game. That's a pretty nice system. Druids, animals at heart. Druids tap into the spiritual power that flows through the simple living things of Eora. Plants, animals, and sometimes even living stone. While not necessarily religious, Druids do have a reverence for the natural world and a keen interest in understanding its mysteries. In most cultures, Druids are understood as sort of primal magician, but among the Glenfathans, Nastic, and many rural cultures, also the Welsh, they may have high positions of influence and authority, quite often advisors to chiefs and kings. Starting abilities, Spirit Shift. All druids have mastered one animalistic form. These forms give the druid strong melee abilities and grant an additional power when the druid is shifted. So basic spell shape-shifting. Druids have access to a variety of offensive and some support-oriented spells. Every 2 levels, the druids automatically gain spells, and as they get better, their spells eventually shift to per encounter instead of per rest. Low on quite a lot of things except deflection, but the druids' animal forms give them pretty awesome combat abilities, especially apparently shapeshift bear, which makes them incredible tanks. Actually makes them incredible DPS dealers as well. So druids can, to be fair, be really quite competent in close quarters, despite all of these squishy stats, depending on if they shapeshift. Now, the chanter, and honestly, from what I understand of this class, I'm really tempted to go with this one. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on reading this out and actually checking out its secondary abilities. It's either that or the rogue. I generally go for rogue in almost any RPG I play, but the chanter has really caught my attention with this game. In every culture across Eora, there are chanters. Many historians consider chanters to be the most ancient works of magic. Their hallowed phrases stirring the collective memory of wayward souls around them, compelling them to generate magical effects in a kind of reenactment. In some societies, chanters form organized groups of storytellers and researchers, but in most parts of the world, they are just a time-honored part of local folk traditions. For me, chanters probably sound closer to actual druids from the real world, and certainly from Welsh history. It's possibly why I'm drawn so keenly toward them. Starting abilities, phrases and chants. All chanters can continuously speak chants made up of magical phrases. Phrases produce passive effects and help build a chanter's power until they can use an invocation. Invocations, powerful magic effects that chanters can create after they have spoken a required number of phrases through their chants. They get Lore 2 and Mechanics 1, so a bit of trap and picklockery and knowledge of miscellany and occult esoteric things. Low endurance, low health, average accuracy, very high deflection, so good at not being hit, which is always a good thing. Now, let's check out some of these chants. Now, we'll have different levels of phrases. I guess we learn these in much the same way the other levels learn spells, or perhaps we have to learn them in the world. All chanters can continuously speak chants made up of magical phrases. Phrases produce passive effects until they can use an invocation. Now, if we have a look at this, increase the move. Blessed was Wengrid, quickest of his tribe. Increases the movement rate and reflex of all allies in an area of effect. Duration of 4 seconds. Linger for 2 seconds. Now that's an important one. Friendly aura, plus 1.2 move speed, plus 10 reflex for 6 seconds. Now, the linger, the effect is it starts when the chanter starts chanting this particular phrase. When they stop, however, the effect linger for an additional 2 seconds, which is an important thing to note, because effectively, we can pick 2 phrases. I'm not sure if you can have more phrases as time goes on, and then you'd cycle through them as you're in combat. But, for example, dull the edge, blunt the point, reduces slashing and piercing damage of enemies in the area of effect, duration 4 seconds, lingers for 2 seconds, foe aura, 0.9 slash damage, 0.9 pierce damage, multiplying their damage by 0.9, so effectively stripping 10% of it away for 6 seconds. Now, again, So you're chanting this for 4 seconds, then you've got a 2-second linger, but after 4 seconds, you probably start on your next phrase, so you'd start on a different chant. So for 2 seconds after you finish chanting dull the edge, blunt the point, for example, if we were going with blessed was Wengrid, then for those 2 seconds at the start of blessed was Wengrid, you'd still have the effect of reducing your enemy's slash and pierce damage. We've also got thick grew their tongues, stumbling o'er words. Reduces concentration of enemies in the area of effect. Character concentration determines how likely they are to have their spells or attacks interrupted during combat. Every point of resolve increases a character's concentration and is opposed by the attacker's interrupt rating. Like attack rolls, interrupts use randomized rolls to determine if the interrupt is successful. If concentration is superior to the interrupt rating, the interrupt is less likely to occur. So basically, it makes it much more likely that someone can interrupt someone's attack. From what I understand, if someone starts casting a spell, if they're gearing up, if they're recovering from an attack, or they're in the sort of animation to make an attack, if you interrupt them, it stops it. In some cases, it means that not just pausing the attack so that they continue through, but rather full on just stopping it, and they have to start again. So if you interrupt frequently, perhaps because you've got a character that's got very, very swift attacks and a decent interrupt chance, then this would make it so that you effectively stun lock someone, which is a very interesting effect to consider. We've got Come Soft Winds of Death. All chanters can continuously speak chants made up... I want to know what this one is. Drains a portion of endurance from all enemies in the area of effect. So this is basically a damage over time, a dot. Minus 4.1 endurance over 6 seconds. That's actually quite a nice one. And at the sight of their comrades, their hearts grew bold. So this is probably a boon for your allies. Emboldens allies in the area of effect, giving bonuses to fortitude and will. Will defense opponents attacks. Defense opposes attacks that are mentally based. A spell that mentally paralyzes the target, for example. It is defined by a character's class, level, intellect, and resolve, but may also be influenced by other effects. And fortitude resists attacks on the internal physical system of the character, that is poison, disease, etc. It is defined by the character's class, level, might, and constitution. So these are basically derived stats, and I like derived stats because they're not as easy to play around with. They're much harder to min-max because they draw from multiple sources to define what they are, and generally speaking, you're not going to have a way of directly affecting it. But spells like this can kind of bypass the requisite sources that the derived stat is drawing from. So I quite like that, actually. Plus 10 fortitude, plus 10 will for 6 seconds. Now, I more or less decided on the chanter. We're going to be going with the chanter. We've got reflex. The move speed and the reflex is pretty nice. Yeah, I'm gonna be going with that one. And I'm thinking, come, soft winds of death. Blessed was Wengrid, quickest of his tribe. I'm just going to imagine in my mind that's been turned into like a little song. And over time, we're going to get so many, we can actually make a whole verse. It's going to be fantastic. I like it a lot. Okay, next. Now, this is invocations. And again, you've got different levels of invocations. Invocations are powerful magic effects that chanters can create after they have spoken the required number of phrases through their chants. Now, I believe requires 3 phrases chanted. Are any of the others with more? Or all of these require 3? Okay, they all require 3. Perhaps the other levels require more phrases. So, for example, for this, we would need... come back. We'd need... blessed was Wengrid, quickest of his tribe. Come, soft winds of death. Blessed was Wengrid, quickest of his tribe. And then next, we can use one of these. So, we've got... But Rennie direct ghost... He would not rest. Calls beyond the shroud and summons a phantom to fight for the party. First level chanter spell requires 3 phases. Speed average, range 10 meters, effect summon phantom. And Hell Hirav crashed upon the shield. Reduces damage reduction of enemies in the area of effect. If their bones still slept under that hill, none can say. Summons 3 skeletons to fight for the party. Oh, I'm liking this. Not felled by the axe, nor broken by the storm. Increases the slash and shock damage reductions for allies in the area of effect. Area of effect length, 2.5 meters. Base, 2.5 meters. I guess that would be affected by intelligence. 90-degree cone. That's pretty cool. Effects, AoE, plus 5 damage reduction, plus 10 damage reduction. I wish I knew what kind of stats the skeletons have, but I guess that's fine. The thunder rolled like waves upon black seas. I mean, that just sounds nice. Creates a thunderous explosion that stuns and shoves enemies in the area of effect. Faux AoE, so I'm guessing this just flat out won't attack our allies, which is good. It's got an interrupt though, 0.5 seconds of average. So if this were to interrupt someone, then they would be interrupted for 0.5 seconds, which, despite how short that sounds, is probably a long time in the game. It depends a little bit on the pacing of battle. Again, I haven't played, so I really don't know. But since that says average, I'm going to assume this is a reasonable amount. Length 2.5 meters, 90-degree cone. 5 seconds for his fortitude. Okay, stunned for 5 seconds for his fortitude. That's quite nice. Crash damage. Thrice was she wronged and thrice justly avenged. Drains electrostatic energy from the environment to create 3 bolts of lightning, causing shock damage to any in their path. Oh, any in their path. That's not so great. Air effect, 3 meters, 90-degree cone. Oh no, faux AoE. Okay, that's not too bad. Again, interrupt. And white worms writhed in the bellies of the dead. Causes a nearby downed enemy to explode, expelling 3 white grubs and crushing nearby enemies. Wow, okay. That sounds actually quite rank and disgusting. I'm not sure I agree with that kind of chant or invocation. Then again, do I really agree? Well, we could think that these ancient warriors have risen of their own accord to aid the chanter, thus soothed by their wonderful singing voice or chanting voice, I guess. And they decided, no evil man could sing that well. No, we will come to their aid. I like this, summoning upon old skeletons to come and help us. But then there's the phantom as well. I'm not sure which would be better. We'll go with if their bones slept still under that hill, none can say. Okay, now we get to choose our attributes. Again, we've gone over most of these, actually, if not all of them. Now, the stars let us know what's particularly recommended for our class. Intelligence is recommended, I guess, because we have quite a lot of area effects. Now, from what I understand, 10 is flat, your average. You get neither a boon nor a penalty for having 10. Anything above it increases things by, oh no, actually that increases by 6% and 5% duration and 2 will. I was going to say it's like 3 plus 3 or something, but no. And anything below is a penalty. So you certainly don't want the high ones to be penalized. But you've got 15 points to play with. Now, from what I understand, there are no brackets, no ranges, as in... With D&D, from what I understand, there are certain thresholds. If you're above a certain threshold, then this confers some bonus, but 1 point below it and you're not getting that bonus. With this, every point matters, above or below the average. So you're much freer in spending points. There's never going to be a case where it's like, well, I need 2 points to make any increase in this stat worthwhile, so I'm just going to invest them elsewhere. It's always going to be worth it. So resolve... Let's see. Resolve reflects the character's internal drive, determination, and fearlessness, and the emotional intensity that they can project to others. It can be useful for mental intimidation, leadership, and convincing performances. In combat, it helps characters maintain concentration and contributes to will and defense. I actually think that resolve is good for a chanter. I'm sort of thinking of a chanter as a druid bard in my mind, a warrior with a poet's heart. So resolve fairly high. Intelligence as well, actually. I quite like the idea of that, but maybe resolve just slightly lower. I'm probably not going to drop any of them below 10. Might, plus 3 damage, plus and healing, plus 3% damage and healing, plus 2 to 42. I'm going to take that up to 12. Dexterity, or Constitution. Plus 12% endurance and health, plus 8 fortitude. Constitution is a combination of the character's overall health and stamina. Although it does not use much in interaction, it is sometimes checked to withstand pain and endure physical taxing ordeals. In combat, it affects maximum health and endurance. I don't actually think that's that important, or at least it's not as important to my way of thinking of this character. I'm probably going to kick myself for not taking that up higher and kind of second-guessing the game, which is flat out telling me, look, this is an important thing to do. But... well, it's just the way it's going to be, I'm afraid. Again, I'm trying to build a character. Right now, I'm building the character in front of you. I'm learning about this character as I go through character creation. And probably the first couple of episodes, I'm going to be learning the personality of the character. I'm going to let the character tell me what kind of person it is. And then once that's kind of solidified after the first couple of episodes, I'll play to that character throughout the rest of this Let's Play. Perception represents a character's sense as well as their instinctive ability to pick up on details. I think that would probably be pretty good. We're going to go for 2 points in that. And then dexterity, hand coordination, balance, and overall grace. I like the idea of you being graceful, but at the same time, I think perception is probably a little bit more useful for you. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Plus 30% area of effect, plus 25% duration. That's going to be quite nice. That's going to be very nice. I'm tempted to take 1 out of Constitution, actually. Just put that into dexterity or even perception. In interactions, it can affect sleight of hand. Like, I'm really quite interested in the interaction effects. Again, like I said, I've often played rogues with high bluff sort of skills, silver tongue, so that they would interact in interesting ways. It was all about the sorts of avenues that my characters could open that other people's couldn't. Likewise with lockpicking, again, doing things that other people couldn't quite do, or disabling traps and thus opening up pathways through maps that other characters couldn't. It was all about exploring more of the story in a way. And as a result, dexterity, I'm going to put an X point into dexterity. So we've got 12, 13, 12, 12, 15, 13. Possibly not the best balance. If I was going to strip 1 from anything, it would probably be might. Yeah, we'll go with 11, 14, 12, 12, 15, 13. Again, I could be making a terrible mistake, but I feel that the character that is the kind of proto-idea that's forming in my mind of what this character is like, these stats are going to work better for that. Now, as for culture, the Ader Empire is currently the largest and most powerful force in this part of the world. It is centered around the equator and has a tropical climate. Though the Empire has colonies in numerous areas of the world, Greater Ader is at its heart and houses the majority of the humans and elven nations. Resolve +1. Okay, so we can just flat out pick our starting culture. I like that, actually. Colonists of the nation of Nastique, consisting of the nations of Nastique, dozens of Amawa settlements, and hundreds of lawless pirate-infested islands that stretch along the southern sea. Deadfire is home to boreal dwarves, Amawa, and a mixed variety of other races. Deadfire Archipelago is the last stop for anyone headed east. A multitude of monstrous sea creatures infest the ocean beyond, making travel virtually impossible. So that'll give me +1 dexterity instead. Ixamital Plains, located on to the northeast of Ir Glanfath. The Ixamital Plains are the large expanse of fertile savannas that are extensively farmed by humans and Orlan's residents. The Ixamital culture is one of the oldest in the world, though one of the least imperialistic, having spread out little over the past several thousands of years. Old Valia, once the crown jewel of the southern seas, Old Valia is now the crumbled remnants of an empire of warring merchant nations. Counting many humans and dwarves among their ranks, the Old Valian countries are still forced to be reckoned with and are proud of their rich cultural heritage. I actually quite like the sounds of that. Rawatai, maybe? Dominated by the Amawa nation of Rawatai, the Gulf itself is a host to a number of nations, most of them Amawa, Orlan, and Dwarven. Though these countries are relatively young, they are some of the most advanced colonial settlements in the East. The Gulf is a land of riches and resources for those who can take them, though the entire coast is often pummeled by violent storms. Constitution +1. The Living Lands. The Living Lands in the mountainous region of a large northern island renowned for its diversity of plant and animal life. Its weather is unpredictable and its ecosystem vary dramatically from valley to valley. The Living Lands are home to an assortment of races in a variety of colonial and independent settlements. Might +1. And the White That Wends. I love the name. A large, cracked southern expanse of polar ice, the White That Wends is home to pale elves and small colonies of daring explorers, outcasts, and adventurers. While virtually no plant life grows in the White, it is home to many hardy species of dangerous animals that forage from the sea to prey upon each other to survive. Now, I'm not really caring about the stat. This is purely an RP choice in my mind. It has to be. So, this one caught my eye. The Deadfire Archipelago, the Living Lands, and ironically the White That Wends, because I like the cold. I'm not so keen on the fact that there's no plant life there, though. Old Valia, kind of, but I'm not as keen on the whole merchant nation thing going on there. I think it's probably going to be the Living Lands. Either that or the White That Wends. I'm thinking... I'm going to go with the Living Lands. I like the idea of vastly different ecosystems and unpredictable weather and this richness of lore that's possibly there. Yeah, I quite like that. We're going to go with the Living Lands. Right, background. Colonist. You were part of a group that founded a fledgling colony in a distant land. We'll get +2 survival. Explorer, you found the siren call of the horizon irresistible. Oh, this actually sounds pretty good. You cannot help but wonder what lies beyond the next hill or wave, and you've built your life around finding out. Lore +1, survival +1. Laborer, your life has been spent in the study of your craft. You trained and prepared, hoping to hone your skills and apply your trade. Athletics +1 and mechanics +1. Merchant, you've traded goods from all over the world, pairing items with buyers of all kinds. Lore +1 and mechanics +1. Drifter, you've never quite fit no matter where you go. Each new town is just a place to rest briefly before moving on to the next. You're more comfortable on the road, traveling the world. Very much towards Drifter or Explorer so far. My gypsy wanderlust. Hunter, you've lived for the thrill of the chase, whether for glory or for sustenance. You've made your living taking the lives of wild creatures. +1 stealth and survival. That's kind of nice, but for the RP reason, it doesn't fit quite. Blade and battle is your way of life. You solve your problems by pulling out your weapon and applying force. I like this. It sounds... I like that description. You solve your problems by pulling out your weapons and applying force, generally in the direction of someone else's head. Scientist. The rulers that govern the world are a set of alchemical... the rules that govern the world, a set of alchemical formulae that you waiting to be discovered and manipulated. To you, waiting to be discovered and manipulated. I like this on a personal level, but probably between Scientist, Drifter, and Explorer. And between Drifter and Explorer, I'm favouring Drifter, honestly. You're more comfortable on the road, travelling the world. Yeah, I think so. But not complete. It's not like he's some sort of bandit that's been driven out. Just doesn't fit in. Doesn't like being where there are too many people. Prefers the sound and the smell of the night. Unfettered by the kith. Okay, now we can change our appearance. Facial hair. Okay, Man of the Wilds. A little bit less Man of the Wilds. For Queen and Country. No, that one's actually not too bad. It's kind of a Riker going on. I don't know, that seems like conquistador sort of facial hair. Kind of like that, actually. And that, for the same reason. I'm thinking it's probably between this one and these. As a chanter, I'm going to go with this. Again, for my ability to relate and empathize and put myself in the headspace of my character, it does kind of have to have some sort of appearance that I can relate to. And as much as I like this, I'm nowhere near that at the moment. So, yeah, we're going to be going with this one, which is much closer to my facial hair. Skin, damn it, we have to be that tanned. I mean, that is practically sun-bronzed compared to me. What is this going to affect? Oh, that's going to affect my clothes. Okay, let's go for the sort of colours that I would favour. Dark, sort of stormy blues. I mean, black is a colour that shouldn't be the only colour, really. It needs to be accentuated. It needs to have accents. Stormy blues are nice. Oh, that's a bit too bright. As is that. I quite like that one. And secondary, what's this going to be colored? That's going to be my pants. Okay. I think my pants would be... The fabric is very different. I wonder if this affects all armors that you put on. If so, that's actually kind of cool. But I wonder how it'll look on lots of other things. But we're not obviously going to have the same color. That's just not right. Well, I imagine these to be leather pants, not cotton. So we're going to go for a more natural leathery color. Yeah, that'll do, I think. Yes. Hair? Really? That's... No. I mean, to me, that color is this one, honestly, but apparently it's black. But we'll go with a slightly... a darker brown. No, that's a little bit too blonde. This is probably closer, again, to my hair coloring. Face... It looks like we can adjust the paleness based on the face a little bit. I think maybe 4. Yeah, it'll be 4, I think. And hair. Can I actually have a look? Kind of all scruffy. Kind of like that, actually. No. Sorry. Kind of like that one too. Wow. You spend too much time worrying about your hair and too little time worrying about your chance with that hairstyle. Very tribal looking there. Wow, that parting. You are losing your hair right now. That parting tells me you have not got very long with your hair. You should make the most of it. That's probably quite similar to me when I've got long hair. It's all kind of swept back, kind of in it's kind of organized chaos kind of way. Let's go and have a look back at these. No. No, I think we'll go with the long hair we just spotted, kind of all swept back like that. Yeah, okay. I like this character. Now we've got to pick a portrait, very similar to the old Infinity Engine games. You can have a portrait. You can also, from what I understand, make your own. So if you're particularly attached to your character and going for a very specific look, you could just paint it and then import it. Oh, you've got a ready smile. I like that. I like that smile. You've got an intense look. I like that too, actually. You can see trouble on the horizon. You're a little bit too serious. Let's have a look for the others. I can't see your face. You frighten me. Conan, what are you doing here? See, I wouldn't mind going for a chanter with kind of a robe sort of thing, or at least a hood, but that looks far too for effect rather than for function. That one looks for function. This is a good roguey kind of hood. I like that one, save for the lack of the beard. Oh, we could decide that we're a woman if we really want to. Oh my lord, death god likes. Ye gods. Nature god likes. Fire god likes. Moon god likes. Oh wow, you look Irish. Dwarves. Okay, well, I'm gonna try for a portrait that looks somewhat similar to my character, but it doesn't look like I'm easily gonna be able to get that. The combination of facial hair and long hair doesn't seem to exist. So let's go for something that kind of captures the feel. Because, I mean, this is roguey, but isn't necessarily nasty, which I like. And it's more functional than this, which seems more pompous. I like the expression. The face looks good. It looks to kind of have the feel going for it. But it is between these two. But I'm probably going to go for this one, honestly. Despite the lack of facial hair. Now, final choice. Voice.
Now I am the leader of the group.
You sound angry.
Keeping an eye out.
You sound angry without reason.
Now I am the leader of the group.
No, I don't like that one.
Nice and slow.
Follow me. Take him down.
You sound like you were thrust into a leadership position that you didn't really want, but you've accepted the burden
Steady does it.
of responsibility.
Leading the way. Easy now. I'm here. Leading the way.
I kind of like that one as well.
Time to see and not be seen. Yeah?
You sound a little bit
I've got
overconfident.
this.
Also, a little bit too American for me to be able to relate to.
Quickly and quietly. Yeah?
Not that there's any problem with American accents. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, again, a little bit too American for me to relate to. Before anyone
got this.
takes offense, there is none intended.
To whispers and shadows.
Ooh.
Yes. I shall lead us.
Oh.
Yeah! Sharp eyes and keen ears. Yes. I shall lead us.
That ruins it for me.
Sharp eyes and keen ears.
You said one thing that I really liked, and all the rest was like, no.
Leading the way. Charge!
The better part of valor.
Follow me.
I think it's probably going to be between stoic and noble.
Steady does it.
And the voice is
Yes.
important, damn it.
Leading the way.
Okay, we're going to be going with noble, I think. Next. Right, okay. We need a name. And I've not really put too much thought into it, except that I believe that you only get one name. You don't like put a surname or a second name or third name or whatever into this. So you just type in one name. So we're going to go with Glindur. Now, in my mind, this person is going to have the rest of their name. We need to know who this person is because they need to know who they are. They need to know where they've come from in order to understand where they're going. So, let's think. What would your full name be? You chanter from the wilds, from the living lands. Let's go with Glindur ap Anerin, which means Glindur, son of Anerin. Because I'm thinking you're going to have a rich oral history, hence being a chanter, and there's going to be a patronymic going on there. Yes, we like it. So this is our character. It has taken me a very long time to make the character. I do apologize. This will probably be a completely separate episode, like episode 0 for this Let's Play. But with that said and done, we're going to be moving into the actual game. So in the very next episode, actual gameplay. I hope to see you there. I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you will continue to enjoy the series. But until then, and as always, do take care.